Hey, and welcome to today's SAP Tech Bytes episode with me, Kevin Musik. I'm a developer advocate for SAP, and today I want to show you how to use the SAP BTP SDK for iOS and actually put a Swift UI, UI on top of it and fetch some data with the OData framework, which is included in the SDK itself. So let's just dive right in and see how this works. All right, we've got the project open here. I've called it My Contacts app. It's basically just a iOS assistant generated app connecting to the sample data service, which is available as a feature in mobile services. And if we would run this now, we could onboard and would see the typical master detail view um, or master detail screens with built with UIKit. What we want to do is we want to replace that with our own SwiftUI user interface and keep the onboarding flow because we want to have the SDK handle onboarding and authentication in this case. So what we're going to do here is we first of all go into main storyboard, and you could just rename that to main old if you want to keep it. I'll just do this. And let's just create a new main storyboard. Usually with SwiftUI, you wouldn't need a storyboard, but as the SDK requires the main storyboard or just some storyboard to initialize and start up the onboarding flow, we want to create just this empty storyboard here. What we want to do next is we want to create our first SwiftUI view. For that, I just create a new group. We just call it SwiftUI because this will contain our SwiftUI code and files. And we create a new file, which is a SwiftUI view. So our SwiftUI view, we just simply call main view. And when we go in here, and we don't need this preview screen for now, or actually just keep this open. Oops. Now I'm messing up a lot of things here. So we see in SwiftUI all views are of type view and are structs. And in here we have a body, which is some view, and the text. So just call this hello world for now. And we can keep this we can run this and it should compile. So the next part would be to say what do we need in our main view at a later point. And what we would need is all the properties or to actually fetch some data from the OData service. So as we know, if you watch previous videos or if you develop with the SDK before, we got proxy classes, and in these proxy classes, we got address, product category, all those kind of things generated out of the metadata model, out of the metadata document of the OData service. And in here, we want to have our ESPM container available. The ESPM container allows us to access the OData service. So what we're going to do is we're saying we have a variable ESPM container, which is of type ESPM container, and as I've created this as an offline OData, I want to say offline OData provider. And we can force unwrap this here because we make sure that when this view is initialized, we pass this in, so this is never going to be null. Here, it's going to complain. The compiler is complaining because it doesn't know offline OData provider. So we got to import a couple of SAP frameworks. So what we need is SAP OData, and we need SAP offline OData, and let's get SAP Foundation as well, and that should be it for now. let's build this again. And we're good to go. So next would be to tell the application UI manager, which manages our UI, and that we don't actually here in the show application screen, that we don't want to have storyboard initialization with the main split view controller because we're going to use our main view here. So let's get rid of all of this. So let's see. Let's get rid of that, and we don't need that. All right. And actually, we don't need the app delegate either, I think. Let's keep this in there for now. So what we're going to do is we're just going to initialize our main view. We can just create this like this, main view, and then create our view here. And the next part would be to say that our main view will get the ESPM container. And the ESPM container is in the OData Controller. And we gotta fetch we gotta get the OData Controller first as well. So for that we need the destinations. So we can say let destinations equal file configuration provider, and we want the app parameters from the plist. So we can say provide configuration, and then we get the configuration. And here we say we want the, oops, this is a string. We want the destinations, and we want this whole thing be parsed as NS dictionary, and then we can retrieve the OData controller over the delegate. And then we go into the session manager, and then we going to retrieve the onboarding session, and there we have a dictionary of OData controllers, and in here we can say, oops, destination, okay, there we go. It's actually going to be multiple destinations, and here we want to have the, and this is the destination for the sample service. So EDM, SAP EDM sample service, and it's a V2 service, and we have to parse this to string, and then we safely parse this to the SAP sample service offline OData controller. And let's compile this, and it's failing. That's probably all right. Cannot assign property main view is a let constant. Oh, of course. Let's do this first. Now that we got our main view initialized and we got the ESPN container retrieved and set on the main view, we want to make sure that after the onboarding process is finished, that the main view is actually being displayed. And for that, we have to use an Apple instrument here called UIHostingController. And UIHostingController helps us to actually wrap that main view, that SwiftUI View, into something UIKit can handle. So we can say let hosting controller. And if you want to read more about the hosting controller, you can look into the description, and there will be a link to the official documentation. So we're creating a UI hosting controller, and that will get a root view, and that will be the main view. So this won't compile because we need the import statement for SwiftUI. Oops. And that should compile now. Yeah. And then from here, we're just going to set the app view controller to this hosting controller and build. So this is building. Remember, we have that main view here with the text hello world. So if we run this now, we should actually see the onboarding process. We can go through the onboarding process, which is UIKit based. And then in the end of the onboarding process, when it was successful, we will show the main view, and that should show us this text hello world. And then we know, okay, it's working. And we can start the onboarding process here. All right, let's log in. And we will see the onboarding process starting up with the data privacy screen. We allow this, and the usage data collection as well. And here we can set an app passcode, and we gotta confirm this. And everything you just saw is configurable. Like you can change the onboarding screens, you can deactivate or activate the app passcode. You can change how the app passcode is supposed to look like, or how long it has to be, what kind of characters the user has to use in its password, and so on. For the generated app, I said I want no push notifications, so we have that code in there as well. So we say allow, and we see our SwiftUI View hello world popping up. That's pretty cool though, because we have the onboarding flow, which is in UIKit. And we have our main view being displayed here in SwiftUI. So we know this is working now. So we can build up our UI. For that, I want to basically show just a simple list with a custom cell displaying just some customers being fetched from the OData service. And for that, we're using the SAP OData and SAP Foundation frameworks to retrieve the customers. And we're using SwiftUI to display the data itself. For that, we go in and we create a new file, which is SwiftUI View, and we create our cell here for our list. So I'm just going to call this customer list cell view because this is of type view. And here we see the same thing with the body and so on. And we know we're going to get passed in customer. So we can say this cell view should get initialized with a customer. And that customer, we will need to put the cell view together. So here, I know that a customer has its properties, and all those properties are going to be optional, so I gotta safely unwrap them. So I want the first name, customer.first name, and I want the last name, so customer last name. I also want the email address. Just type this up real quick, and I want the country. So customer.country, and in here we can assemble our cell. So what we want to have is a V stack, so a vertical stack of elements. And that V stack has an alignment, which is leading. So all our content is in that V stack, vertically stacked, aligned to leading. And in here, we basically just have 3 texts. So the first text will have the first name plus the last name. The second one will just display the email address, and the third one just display the country. All right, so now we have these if-let statement. in case the customer's properties are nil or not set, we just want to display a plain old simple text saying, I don't know, no customer data available. All right, so that's pretty cool. So we can just do this. Of course, our customers list cell previews, our preview provider complains because it has this customer up here and it wants a customer in there. So we just put in an empty customer. Of course, you could create a customer object with some data in there and throw it in this preview, and then you could preview it here on the side. But in our case, we just skip this for now, and we're happy with that kind of code. And we're going back to the main view where we are going to display that thing. So in our main view, I want to have a list. And compared to UIKit, I don't have to declare a table view controller with delegate and data source. I can just simply say I want a list here. And in this list, I'm going to display the cell views later. So let's add another couple of properties we're going to need. So we have this state property. So state means, as the documentation states here, a property wrapper type that can read and write a value managed by SwiftUI. So state properties are super helpful for maintaining the state of, for example, our customers within a view. So that's what we want. So we're saying state private var customers, and these are an empty customer array because that's what we're expecting from the data service to come back. We have a potential error, so we want to do error, and we want to display an alert in case we have an error. So we can say private var showing alert equals false. So this state here, showing alert, is going to be maintained by our back data service. So we're fetching or fetching not, and we're fetching, and we will retrieve an error or the data itself. Sorry, and depending on that, our showing alert Boolean will change between true and false, and depending on that, because we're using state, our UI will automatically show the alert or not showing the alert. So that's pretty cool thing about the state. So here we can say list, and in that list, on that list we can say on appear. So that means we can add an action to be performed when the view appears. So we can say on appear, and we want to perform an action, and that action is going to be ESPM container fetch customers, and we will get customers back or an error, and then in our closure we can say if the error is there. So if we retrieve an error because something went wrong while fetching the customers, we're setting the error, and we're setting the showing alert to true and return out of our fetch customers. So that will trigger that the alert dialog will be shown. But one more thing we gotta do. We gotta also say if there is no error, we got the customers back. So we want to set the customers here, and also on the list itself, we want to say if our showing alert is set to true, we want to display the alert. So we say is presented, and that will listen to showing alert which is a binding bool. So this is data binding on our UI. So our UI changes according to the value, in this case the boolean. So if that is set to true, our alert will be displayed. So in here we say alert, and we've got a title, and our title is a text, and that text will say error loading customers, and this will also have a message, and that's a text as well, and this is there was an error loading the customer list, and here we also give in the error localized description, and oops, this is actually wrong. So, and of course we need some sort of a dismiss button so our users can actually dismiss this alert. And that's all you got to do to actually display an alert, which is pretty cool. Now that you get that, we want to actually put something into our list. So for that, we say for each. This is a new type of iteration and control flow in SwiftUI. We want to say for each our customers, and to identify each of the single customers, we say we want to listen to the self ID, and in here we can say customer in, and then we have our customer list cell view, and this expects a customer, and we pass the customer in, and we build, and that's it. I mean, that's all we had to do here to show a full-on list with customers, fetching that from our data service, and displaying it in our customer list cell view. So let's just run this again to see how this is looking like. Of course, SwiftUI profits and is super powerful in previewing your UI at any time in our preview, but for timely reasons, I just let this run real quick on our simulator to actually see this, because we just want to see if the live data is being fetched. We don't want to write up like a mock customer right now or anything like that, because our customer model would have to conform to certain protocols for SwiftUI to be working with. So we just run this on the simulator real quick, and we see this, see our live data here. So it's actually loaded from the backend, from our sample OData service over mobile services. So we have all our customers in here. So let's just go into our customer list cell view, and in here we want to style these text just a little bit so it looks a little bit more appealing. So first of all, we want to change the font, so we can just say font, and we want to change this to headline, and we want to change the foreground color, so the color of the text, and here we want to use our color palette of SAP Fiori. So foreground color expects color. Color is a struct defined by SwiftUI, and color doesn't, you cannot, just for foreground color, you cannot put in a UI color, which is the color palette of, or the color palette implementation of SAP Fiori. But color has an initializer with UI color, so we can use this here. And then we can say UI color dot preferred Fiori color as we know it, and we want to have, let's say, primary 1. And here we just basically copy this and change the headline to subheadline, and here we, for the country, change this to footnote, and the primary colors we just change to 2, and 3, or actually change this to something more present, like I don't know, chart color. I think they're more colorful here. And we can just go ahead and compile this, run in our simulator, so you actually see the whole thing changing the way we want it. All right, with that, I want to close today's SAP Tech Bytes session. What we've learned today is how to combine the SAP BTP SDK for iOS with the SwiftUI framework. And that's just one of many ways on how to combine these two together. And I think in the future we will see far more from the SDK side on how to actually use SwiftUI for building amazing business applications for iOS, iPadOS, and macOS. And with that, keep coding. See you next time.